All right, gang, welcome to this episode of the Dealer Playbook Podcast. So excited that you're here, especially for this conversation that I am having today with the Chief Operations Officer at ActivEngage. Carol, thanks so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook Podcast.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, I can only imagine the amount of data that comes through a platform like ActivEngage. And so I'm really excited to kind of dig into this conversation. We both know the narratives that are happening throughout the automotive industry at current. For those listening in the future, here's kind of your journal entry. Nobody wants to admit we're in a recession. Everyone thought that the bull market ushered in by the pandemic was going to be the thing that they should hang their hat on. And now we're in this interesting little place where it's like, oh, we just spent 2 years really pushing the fact that car shoppers don't want anything to do with car dealerships and that they want to just do everything online. And now we're seeing some really interesting things with some companies that shall remain nameless that start with the letter C and rhyme with Arvana. I don't know how to. Who knows? Might be a penny stock by Christmas.
Yeah.
My question to you is now, on the tail end of all of that discussion in the industry and all the conferences we've all been to talking about and deliberating over whether or not car shoppers want anything to do with car dealerships, my question to you is, do car shoppers want to even talk to car dealerships? Is that still a thing?
I love that question. They never didn't want to talk to car dealers, is what I would tell you. So even in the height of the pandemic, this is so funny. Even in the height of the pandemic, it's not that they did not want to talk to car dealers. They wanted to find the avenues to get the purchase done in however they could, because as we all know, it was state by state, it was town by town, it was, oh, we're open, we're closed. So they needed that communication and they wanted that communication. And in fact, we saw the conversation, the length of the conversations swell in 2020 and 2021. So where we had been at an average of a 9-minute conversation, they went up to 16 minutes. So 2020, 2021, those conversations average length was 16 minutes. And a fair bit of it was, how are you? How is everyone there? But then there was also the, can I test drive the vehicle? What are your protocols, right? And yes, we have all seen the pop-ups and you can put whatever you want on your site. But the thing is, people don't like to read. So having that affirmation, that social connection of a person saying, this is how we can safely help you transact, it was big. It was big in 2020, 2021. Now we're in 22. Those conversation lengths have come back down. They're dropped between 20 and 26%, depending if it's a desktop or a mobile conversation. And what that tells us is people are out. They're out, they're about, right. They're interacting. It has speeded up now to pre-pandemic length of conversations. And now the questions are a little bit different. And it's vital that they talk to someone at the dealership, but their ability, their willingness to wait on that person to provide the information is shrinking. You know, they're out and ready and moving. So, yeah, it was a great question. You mentioned the recession that we're not in. And the other interesting piece of data that I saw yesterday is when it comes to people asking about payment, do I qualify, what my down payment is, that really kind of drifted away in 21 and 2020. So not as much of the conversation, but in the last 4 months, it's swelled, it's doubled. So right. Down payment is a big question in conversations in the last quarter. And so you got to think about that. Some of that pandemic money, all of the incentive money that was coming into people's hands, I think that's starting to dry up. The latest phrase of loud layoffs, it's hitting people and they don't have that expendable income. And so now that's their concern when they're entering that conversation on your site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we see this we've seen cycles of this, but I can't think of a time in my life, even if, we only know what we can reference against. So we have 08, 09, but that was kind of a completely different circumstance that triggered an economic, downfall. Here we have, like you said, loud layoffs. You do have this segment of the market who is concerned about increased interest rates and can I make my payments and inflation and all these sorts of things. And then there's, even inside of that, I find there's subsegments of people that are like, true, but despite all of that, I live in a metroplex and I'm hanging on to my job. And regardless of the interest rate, I still need a vehicle to get to work because I'm not going to wake up at 3 a.m. to ride a bus for 7 hours to get there on time.
Right.
And so there still are people out in the market. But to your point, and especially as I see it pertains to these conversations, that's a signal to me and hopefully to those listening that I need to figure out how to make that conversation as meaningful as possible in a shorter period of time. So based on your data and the things that you're seeing and all of the conversations that you, your team counsels the dealer body on, how do I get past the small talk as quickly as possible and right down to identifying exactly what it is that customer wants with, dare I say, an active listening mindset, not that's the query that they put into the chat box, therefore they must only care about price.
Yeah. The shopper will take you there. So the shopper will either have the small talk or not have the small talk, but they will tell you exactly what's at the forefront of their mind and what's most important to them. And it is just your responsibility to have someone on the end of that conversation that can address that. The other really little thing that's upticked and taken off is this concern about market adjustment and market markup over MSRP. We saw that triple in conversations in 22 versus the last 2 years. It used to be insignificant. It was a trace amount that people, like 0.4%, that people would bring that up into a conversation. And now it's triple what it ever has been. So consumers are smart. They know the market. So to your point, when they click into message on your site, they're ready to do business. And they will tell you, if their concern is a market adjustment, does your store do market adjustments? They'll also tell you what is their hot button. So your staff just needs to be trained. You need to make sure you have the right people who can handle those queries and address it. And great point, be an active listener. Acknowledge what it is they're concerned about and address that concern. This notion that you need to put all of your information up front in a DR tool, your best rate, this is a false notion because some people, that's not what's most important to them. It's the vehicle. Is it a fair price? It's their trade. It's how can I safely acquire the vehicle? You have to wait and see what's important to them.
Let me ask you this. If we get past all of that garbage, that nonsense that we try and force people into to increase the quality of the lead, and we're focused more on just being human beings who talk to other human beings about the things those human beings care about.
Yes.
Does that perhaps bring into question the need for DR tools? Like, do customers... this is kind of a loaded question, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. This is purely opinion-based at this juncture, but does that bring into the question the need for a DR tool? Do customers actually want to bypass the dealership, or is it only because of what they become accustomed to that they're looking for a better way, and DR was the best thing that we could come up with?
I look at DR tools as another way of interacting with the dealership. I don't view it as bypassing the dealership. And I would venture to say a lot of consumers don't either. I think that is the only attraction of Carvana, was that it was not a dealer. And we see that that's just had customers swarming to it, and they've done tremendously well.
Right.
So
Yes.
I don't think that's the majority of people. DR tools is
Right.
another tool in your toolbox. So yes, if you connect with that shopper, and then you know exactly when to bring out the credit application or exactly when to usher them into a digital retailing tool. I love the fact that we can see, or whoever is using our software, because of our integrations with these tools, the gentleman or the salesperson, sales manager in the dealership can see exactly the step that consumer is on. And if they opt to go video, they can. So
Right.
the other faction of, or benefit of, this pandemic is so many people are used to being on video. You know, we know that most people message in during their workday, but if they do happen to have an office or it's during their lunch hour and they're like, oh, let me get this credit app done, they get stuck and they go, I just need to talk to someone. You know, we have that ability where the dealership and that person can connect face to face on a video and help them through that. So I really look at the DR tools as another way of interacting with the dealer, not a way around the dealership at all. Yeah.
This could be my own venting, but nothing infuriates me. I'm not speaking for anybody else, but for me, nothing enrages me more than hoping that I can talk to somebody and then getting a robot who doesn't know how to answer my questions because it's just programmatic and it's,
Yes.
you know, it's got canned responses and things of that nature. So from your perspective, you know, with what you guys are working on at ActivEngage, I know you have different models, right? You've got fully managed chat services. You've got kind of a hybrid option. You've got where the dealer can do their own stuff. What do you see as from a customer? Like, are we past the chat bot phase, and do we just expect that we're talking to a real person? Do you have any data that says, oh, when it's a chat bot, the engagement does this or that or the other thing versus a live person?
Yeah, the data that I have is with a very large partner that we recently integrated with, whose previous provider used a chat bot up front. We deliver more than 30% additional qualified leads than a chatbot. And of those leads, I haven't looked recently, but I know initially they're higher closing leads. So they're better quality leads. There's more of them and you close higher. That was true of a large partner we integrated with 7 years ago also. They saw the same thing. So anyone who has a chat bot catching that shopper, you're just kissing away 30 to 40% of your leads.
Whoa.
Right up front.
Yeah. Wow. I wasn't expecting it to be that high, but I can understand it because it enrages me when I get a robot.
You're not alone. And I would say the thing that enrages me more is if I go through a chat bot, I'm like, okay, let me get through the workflow. Let me ask.
Yep.
Because then I'll get someone, right? So then it's like, oh, just a minute, someone's coming.
And then nobody.
Right.
Yeah. Where is it? It says I was connected to Sally 15 minutes ago, but I think Sally's on her lunch break.
Right. Now I've invested actual energy and I'm sitting there. So, yeah.
As a best practice then, in dealership, okay, so live person, we see the increase, the data is there. You've got boatloads of data to work from, big data set, which is always nice, always refreshing when somebody has a substantial sized data set to work from versus the I love those surveys that go out and it's like, of the 100 people we polled, like, dude, there's 8 billion people on the planet.
It's like the 100 people they survey on Family Feud. I love that show, but I'm like, who are these people? I don't understand.
Yeah, what state? Let's start with what state are these people from? Because then
Right.
we can start to understand the bias of their answers to things.
Yeah.
Deep South, on the bayou, you're like, oh, well, of course, alligator's the answer for everything.
Yes.
So we have this data. Now, for those that are considering, maybe they have a chat tool, maybe it's ActivEngage, maybe it's some other platform, and they're wondering, well, how do I make this more effective? When you onboard a dealership to start working with the tool set, what I'm picking up on is like, well, but yes, the tool is there in the same way that a hammer is a tool, but you still need to pick up that hammer. You still need to hammer the nail into the wood.
Make sure it's a nail, not a screw. Yes.
Right. Make sure it's a nail. So what do you see across the board as maybe the common misperception out of the gates when people install a tool like what ActivEngage offers?
The common misperception is that messaging is easier than being on the phone. It's not. Okay. It's more difficult because it's very stark. So missed punctuation, it's let's eat, Grandpa, or let's eat, Grandpa. Two completely different statements, right? And so if you're dealing with a consumer who's interacting with a dealership, a simple mistake can take that off in a bad way. So the first common mistake is you really got to think about who you have handling the conversations and just make sure that they're ready. And our customer care team does a great job. When they work with dealers, they go through this. Everyone on our customer care team came from our chat team. So they've done the chat. So they're able to give those tips and they're really able to help their dealers get their team up to snuff and ready to go with that. I think the other thing is not understanding. Part of the tool is you can see where the consumer came into your site. You can see the pages they were on your site. So you can get a mindset of where that shopper's been and what they're thinking. Did they go to a new car page, search results page, and then they went over to used? Maybe they didn't see exactly what they were looking for. It's a great question to bring up into the conversation. So really understanding the benefits of what you have at your fingertips there is big. Yeah.
It's funny, this day and age, I mean, we've only been in the digital age for who knows how long now, that we still tend to get stuck with what do I do with the data? And I love how you positioned what you just said. Like, you have this tool in front of you that's gone to work. And one of the things that I love about web technology is that it is a better listener than we are. People, the way I look at Google, for example, is it's not a search engine. It's a listening engine.
Yes.
Right? It's listening to every letter you input into that search box, perceiving your intent, and then giving you what it believes are the most relevant results in proximity to your physical location and as relevant to whatever it is you searched as possible. And what you just said as the tie-in to that is, I just see it so clear in my mind. If whoever is working a chat with a customer, if I can see the flow of what page they landed on, what page they went to next, what part of the page they interacted with, what vehicles the trend of what vehicle types or makes or colors that they're looking at, I can't stop there and be like, well, that's super cool. I need to deploy now my human nature to take all of that and say, well, then what do I understand? What's my thesis? What do I understand about? And I'm not saying you got to be all Charles Dickinson here and you know what I mean? And write down, oh, my thesis is that with 97% congruity, they want a Subaru. No, it's like, but your brain is powerful,
Yeah.
and you can take that input and be like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here.
Yeah.
Maybe they're looking at all these Subarus. Maybe I should ask if they have dogs or pets, or like, how can I build the relationship with them and make it more encouraging, that they would want to then go to book an appointment and come in and visit me and feel like we already have a bit of a relationship going. But I feel like most people are just like, let me go put my hand on it to make sure that it's still here. You're like, dude,
so
you're wasting all the data.
And that's the difference between, if I'm in store and my paycheck reads whatever I sold, my mentality is different.
Right.
For our team, we are service minded. So we want to know, how can I serve that shopper the best? That's why we've built these tools. We have KPIs, we have metrics like every company does. But those, you notice I didn't say goals. We don't have goals because they're too easy. Because if you just connect with the shopper, your metrics will be met. Period. End of story. If you make the connection, the metrics are met. And metrics for us mean a really warm to hot quality prospect flowing in for our clients. I came from a dealership. I know what that means. I have been in the manufacturer side where I know my dealers need to move X number of these models because I got this number sitting at the port.
Right.
So I understand what that means. And that's the way we've built everything. It's so interesting as I talk about new cars, the split between new and used EV models. This year, oh my gosh, in 2020, it would be 55% new. 45% of the EV leads were on used cars in 2020. Today it's 79-21. 79% of the EV leads are for new cars and 21% are for used. So it is interesting. I have so many, like from that, I'll go run 15 more queries to go, okay, why? Is it the new EV offerings? Is it the lack of used inventory? What are the conversations surrounding those leads, right? So, and then we'll dish that out to the team to go, hey, new profile. If this is what you're looking at, this is a way to connect. This is a way to steer, open up the options. That's the other thing is, oh my God, who wants to see a conversation with someone who has to buy a car, but they were stuck on this one model, and that's the one model I don't have as a dealer.
Right.
Our goal is to open up the options. So
I also want to know if that 79% are from California.
Could be a valid. Yeah.
Yeah, like controversial statement of the day, and take it for what you will, DPB gang. But I'm almost certain this is like people who say they don't eat at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Like, I'm no mathematician here, but 99 billion hamburgers served, you eat at McDonald's. You're just a liar.
Right.
And this is the same about EV. Like, do we care about the environment? Yeah. Sure we do. Do we care about it that much? No, I don't think so. Right? You're like, wait, the sun's going to explode in 4.5 billion years? Wait, I can't even comprehend a million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm interested to see where they come from, and whether or not the narrative that is being pushed surrounding EV.
Correct.
By the way, don't get me wrong. I'm not conspiracy guy. I'm not whatever, but I do, as a marketing guy, I do believe in the power of marketing and media and messaging. Yeah. I want to see a correlation between the buy-in of the narrative versus what you just said, which is it because there's a softening of used and now we're kind of interested in, like, I want this exact
there's
model.
Many more new models, some more affordable models. Yeah. Right. Here's an anecdotal thing. I noticed as I was just watching football all weekend, which is a bad habit. But there's a lot of automakers have been using the QR codes, right? So there's a large partner of ours that started putting the QR code on their ad. I come in yesterday, I'm looking at volume, and wow, the volume really spiked Saturday and Sunday.
Interesting.
Yeah, with that partner. And so that's one weekend, but I am watching that too to go,
Human behavior is so fascinating to me. Like, what psychological triggers are getting pulled in order for us to take action? I think about Costco. I mean, why do people shop at Costco the way that they do? Like, who in their right mind thinks that 400 pounds of Colby Jack cheese is a good idea? But here you are, you see big people, oh my goodness, but it was only $10 a brick. And
look, let me say, when I had a son training to go into the Navy, the 5 dozen eggs, you can buy a box of 5 dozen eggs. That was a lifesaver. That was a lifesaver for us. Yeah.
And you think, man, I mean, I'm a part of something. Like, Costco knows how to pull on those psychological triggers. I'm a member of this place.
Yeah.
If I sign up for that card, I get money back at the end of the year, and then I can use that to fill the freezer with meat or like whatever. And we buy into all of these sorts of things. And I'm interested in that in the automotive industry, paying attention to the messaging, the narrative, the direction, the lobbyists, all of those sorts of things. And the reason I say that and how this pertains really to this conversation in my mind is, on the one hand, as an industry, we say customers are fed up and don't want any more of X until we push a narrative that makes them show up for X in droves.
Yeah.
Like, we're more robotic than we think. Like, we're more predictable than we think.
Yes.
And so I wonder, based on all the data and the landscape that you're able to see things from, how predictable, like you brought up pricing earlier, availability. I mean, is it almost predictable at this point what car shoppers are going to be asking when they show up to have a conversation?
It doesn't vary a great deal. It is fairly predictable, yes. And I will say, mid this year, when we were all looking at interest rates and what could be coming in the fall, and I circled up with my team who have been here for a long time. We were here in 2008, and we had those conversations. And from a customer care side, I've prepped that team. Your accounts may start adding some more subprime lenders early in 23, mid 23. From a messaging side, these are the kinds of conversations we need to start to get the team ready for, how to handle them, not overcommit, but certainly not to be dismissive. You can. I feel like Farmers Insurance, we know a lot of things because we've seen a lot of things, right? So.
Yes. And by the way, I should have prefaced with this, but now I will postlude, since you've just watched a musical that was overly musical and I've seen the same musical. Let's postlude that thought with, I do not want the perception to be that I think car shopper or customer is dumb. That's not what I mean by predictable. But to your point, if they're asking the same questions or asking about similar things, and we've seen this for years and years and years, then really what I want to highlight here is that it is then incumbent upon whoever is working with that customer to take that data, take kind of that predictability, and for heaven's sake, find out the most efficient, personable, relationship building way to answer those questions.
Right.
Like, stop being robotic in your responses. Be like, oh, they all care about this. How can I show tender care and concern for them in a much more human approach? And I think, circling back to this whole concept of what's going to happen in the economy and the softening of the market and interest rates and well, you can leverage all of that data, all of that understanding about how consumers ebb and flow in the market to give them better service. serve them better. So
that's it.
I want to turn this back over to you one last time. I've really enjoyed this conversation, Carol. I appreciate you coming on. How can those listening get in touch with you and learn more about ActivEngage?
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's always great to spend time with you and have this kind of conversation. I'm kind of a nerd about it. So anytime I get to sit and talk about auto chat, they can get in touch with me via email, Carol@ActivEngage, LinkedIn. I'm on there. Happy to answer any question really from anyone. If you want to email or message me through LinkedIn, we can do it there. We can have a phone call, whatever that is. And I'm a dealership. My stepdad was a dealer. So I really value our dealerships and our dealers. And if you just have a frustration, whether you're looking to switch tools, not switch tools, whatever that is, please, always happy to have a conversation and help people out. So,
love it. Thanks so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook podcast.
All right. Thank you.